Thank you. Thank you, by the way, for coming. I realize Thursday afternoon to have a presentation where we're going to ask for people of the community to be part of a presentation of a report that was done in June 19 of this year. It's quite a stretch sometimes, and I realize also that there are a lot of people that cannot be here. However, this is the reason why it's going to be recorded, and we're going to make sure that as many people as possible are going to be aware of what's going on here. Thank you for those of you that were able to attend. Now, just going to use that. Okay, everything is okay? Okay, now, thank you, welcome. Before I'm going to start that presentation, I would like me, first of all, to thank our partnership. This presentation is not only from the Department of Environment and Local Government, from the Government of New Brunswick. No, it's more than that. It's the partnership, what we call Sustainable Communities Partnership. And there are different organizations that are part of that. We have CMHC that is part of it. We have the Association of Municipal Administrators of New Brunswick with Daniel Charon that is here, that is part of it. We have also Invest in Moncton with Groupe Littoral Vie, and we have also UNB with the Urban and Community Studies Institute that is part of it. Stephen Hildebrand is going to be their representative today, and you're going to see him during the presentation. He's going to do part of the presentation, and you'll see where the transition is going to go during the presentation. This being said, think always that everything we bring today, it's part of the partnership, okay, that Sustainable Communities Partnership. It's many organizations that are part of it, and from time to time we're going to different regions, and we're going to have some organizations that are going to be at the regional level. They're going to be a regional partner, okay? Of course, I mean, it is the Environmental Trust Fund that is making it possible, and we thank the government of New Brunswick for helping with that. On that, before we're going to go further, I'm going first of all to tell you who I am for you, and after that I would like me to know who you are, or just reminding me who you are, just to have an idea of people we have around the table here. And it's going to be better also for the implementation when we're going to talk about that later on, okay? I'm going to start with myself. I work with the Department of Environment and Local Government as a planner for the province. I've been working for many years with them. I've been working in sustainable community design since 2003, but really the approach that we're talking about right now has been started really last year. And it's the first time that it has been presented that way, and I'm going to extend a bit more on that kind of presentation later during this presentation. Thank you. Okay, the purpose of this session. You remember that some of you were part of that brainstorming session. It was really the first time that it was done here in this region, having a brainstorming session on finding a ways for attracting newcomers and also attracting new jobs, and how we're going to do it. And basically, I mean, this session here is the result of that brainstorming session. We're going to present here the information for positioning your communities of all the region, and we're talking about the Regional Service Commission 10 regions, so it means several communities that are included inside of that. And it's for you to position yourself at the world stage in order to attract newcomers and jobs in your community, okay? Now, before we're going to go with the results themselves, we have to give you a bit of background of where we're going with that, because some of you are not really aware of why it started in that big approach, and what is the idea behind that. First of all, I would like me to tell you what is the sustainable community design approach. What is that? What we're talking about, just to give you a brief overview of what is the approach and how that presentation of the report fits with the approach itself. Understanding also your context here and understanding also the context of the brainstorming session, how it works. And of course, I mean, the main portion of the whole presentation is going to be the results. Results that is going to be divided in two sections. The first section, we're going to look at what the world trends are and what the literature that it was not part of the brainstorming session is mentioning about how you can position your region in order to attract newcomers and to have investment that are going to be done in your region, okay? So we're going to talk about that, and after that we're going to move on with the real brainstorming session. We're going to talk about the methodology that we use. We're going to talk about the main focuses of the whole shebang of all the information that was presented over there. And interestingly enough, you were able that day, people that were part of that brainstorming session, to bring 700 ideas. A sheer amount of ideas, as you can imagine. And it was quite a lot of work to put that all together and to analyze the information. We have here copies of the full report, the one that you see in color with the page in color, okay? This is the full report. If you want to have only the executive summary, we have enough executive summary for everybody. It's only a 2-page report. And if you want to have the appendices with that, because you want to have all the details of how it was done and what was said and how it was said, well, you can take also the appendices. We have only 4 or 5 copies of the appendices, okay? Now, if ever you need the electronic copy, please let me know, and I'm going to do my best, I mean, just to send you an electronic copy, okay? Any question at this point in time? No? Good. Now, after everything has been presented with the results, we're going to go with the next steps, because it's one thing to present a report, and I hope you didn't come here to look at the clown that is going to be in front of you and is going to make a presentation. Because if it's that, I have something really bad to tell you. It's not going to happen that way. What we're going to do, we're going to say, okay, now, what do you want to do with that? How the implementation is going to be? How do you want to have it implemented? And we're going to talk about, first of all, the programs that are already in place, and this is where PTEL is going to make a presentation over there. And they're going to talk about programs, possibilities, and limitations also. As you can imagine, any organizations have their limitations too. We're going to talk about proposals, creation of committees, or put it more like working groups, okay? This is really what we're talking about here. It's working groups, so we're going to talk about that. And your feedback, of course, obviously. And the people that are going to see this presentation on Community TV, we're going to ask them also to call the town of St. Andrews and to let them know that they would like to be part of committees and to mention which committee we're going to talk about during the presentation, okay? So at this point in time, I'm just going to move on with sustainable development and understanding what is the approach that we would call building sustainable communities with design, okay? First of all, if we understand what is sustainable development, they're going to mention in the literature that every time you want to have a sustainable development, you have to put all together the social aspect of it, the environmental aspect, and the economical aspect, all of it all together when you're going to build new environment, or you're going to build new building, or whatever, I mean, you're going to build in your community, okay? In order for all of that to be sustainable, to bring sustainable development. Based on that, what we have done, we have developed a kind of approach, and the approach itself is building sustainable communities with design. And we put the emphasis here on design because design is extremely important. Before I'm going to ask you to do something in your community, if I come in your community and I say, oh, you will benefit for having a sustainable community by doing these type of steps, the first thing you are going to ask me, do I really need to be more sustainable? And in order to understand if you're more sustainable, we're going first of all to look at the economical aspect of it. That means the fiscal impacts. This is the reason where we are talking about situational studies with communities. We would like, for you to be aware of what is your position right now. We call it the balance sheet, basically, of the community, understanding where you are right now, seeing the position where you are. And if you have a problem with your revenues, with taxations, with whatever is going on over there, can we understand the link also with design? Because design has huge impact on that, okay? The second one is the fact that a lot of communities in the past, and today, they are saying the same thing. They're saying, well, okay, it's one thing to talk about sustainability, but really what we're facing right now as a community is depopulation. We're having also a problem for keeping our people in our region. People are going to other provinces or they're leaving the region. There's less jobs that are created in the area. There's less investment that are also coming in the area, and that becomes a big problem. What can we do there? If that is not sustainable, you bet that there's no point to talk about sustainable development of what is already there. So what we're doing with that, this is the reason why we have put a lot of emphasis on developing that pillar that we call the brainstorming session. And during the brainstorming session, it's in order for you to find your world niche to attract newcomers and investment, okay? And we're going to come to that in a moment. And in parallel with that, the other pillar would be on equipping, training developers and communities for them to understand how the principles of sustainability can be implemented when you build or when you have a situation that is already there. And that means we're going to base it on what we call smart growth principles. It could be Agenda 21 principle, it could be new urbanism principles, whatever type of organization that is specialized in sustainability that they're going to tell you these are their principles of sustainability we would like to bring in our region. This is where we're going to say, okay, we're going to help you at least to understand the principles and how you can implement these principles. So it means that we have to train the builders, we have to train also people that are in the subdivision development and also in development in general, okay? What we have done the information session. Last year, we were in Blacks Harbor, and we were invited by the people of Blacks Harbor that were letting us to present that new approach that is developed that's called Building Sustainable Communities with Design. It was the first time that it was presented in the province. Your region has become a pilot project, the pilot project for the English section of New Brunswick. There's also the Acadian Peninsula that is going to go through the same exercise, and we're going to start next week with them, okay? Now, that was done, and after that, when people understood where we were going with that, we were talking about the community's fiscal impact. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And we have done the brainstorming session. All of that in order to get to the implementation. Think about it. We have created a locomotive, if I could say the analogy, of sustainability. So please don't reinvent the wheel. We're going to use the same locomotive all the time, okay? But there's a lot of organizations that are specialized in one special component of sustainability. And we would like for them to have the possibility of bringing that component to the community inside of a big overview. But they don't have to reinvent the wheel. When they want to know what is the big overview, we have the approach that is going to welcome their whole component, okay? Now, okay, as I mentioned about the fiscal impacts session, there are some communities here on RSC 10 that have received their own situational study. We have worked with that, and we have met the people of these communities. St. George, Blacks Harbor, and St. Andrews have received that situational study, so they are aware of where they are in their positioning, and they are aware of what they can do, okay? And that means now they can justify to move ahead and to change some of the practices and to adopt new practices that are going to give better benefits for their communities. Now, if there are other communities that would like to have a situational study being done, please let me know. Because, as I mentioned, there are only 3 communities here that have received that situational study. It's important for these communities, for any community, to understand what is their position before we're going to move on towards sustainability. With the Building Sustainable Communities with Design approach, of course, I mean, we wanted to determine with the brainstorming session how to position your region at the world stage to attract newcomers. And we mean here retirees, knowledge workers, and jobs in your region mainly, okay? So we're going to talk more and more about that in the detail with this presentation here. Now, the whole exercise itself is supposed to help your region to sell yourself to newcomers and to create jobs. If it's not going to do that, of course, I mean, we shouldn't go toward that goal, okay? And it's a pilot project. So it means a pilot project, we can make mistakes, okay? And if we make mistakes, please let us know, and we're going to adjust along the way. We want to have the ownership and the implementation coming from your region. And we want your people that are going to say, yes, we are interested for the implementation, and we're going to work toward the implementation. That brainstorming session that we did, it was in order to generate creative and innovative solutions to a problem. And we were mentioning what were the problems, and we're going to come back to that just to remind you of what we were discussing at the time. Very often when we see communities here in New Brunswick, and especially in areas that are similar to this region, people are mentioning, I manage depopulation. And very often I tell them, please, I hope, I mean, you're not a good manager. Because if you really manage depopulation, that means that, and you're a good manager, eventually you're going to disappear yourself, okay? So we don't want that to happen to you. You're facing a situation that is depopulation in your community. What can we do in order to change it? Now, would be interesting for you to at least position your region in ways that you're going to answer that question. What is your world niche? How can you attract some people to come and live in this area and attract also investments in your area? Achieve higher revenues. I mean, of course, everybody is talking about that. Of course, everybody is thinking about decreasing the capital and operational costs of infrastructure and services that you have to provide for people that live in this region. But if really you want to have newcomers, knowledge workers, retirees bring jobs here, there's one thing that we have to think in particular that is extremely important. It's what we call innovation. And I say here, innovate, 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 innovate all the time. If we just go on with no change, don't be surprised that from one census to another, you see the population going down and down and down. In New Brunswick, as you are aware, we're getting with a lot of people that are getting older every year, okay? And we're not, some people think that they are not getting older every year, but most of us, we feel every year, every morning that, hey, I'm getting older, okay? We don't have a lot of babies that are here in the making in New Brunswick, if I could say it that way. I don't know exactly how to say it, but and we know that we need to have new population and we need to have younger people to come and to bring basically the new blood that is going to change how we're going to do things and how we can go ahead and have growth in our community. So it means that we will have to do something different in order to attract these people. And we would like also for the international capital to think about your region when it's time for investment. Is it possible? Well, we thought about that when we had that brainstorming session. This picture has been taken during the time of people when they were here. Now, but before we're going to go to that, we're going to start with the world trends. And there are a lot of studies that have been done with that, but I'm going to limit myself to two studies that you can find on the internet. One that is the Grosvenor report, and the other one is 2015 Emerging Trends in Real Estate by Pricewaterhouse, okay? These two studies, they talk about understanding the trends to position any region on the planet for them to attract jobs and also newcomers, basically mean investment in your area. And I'm going to summarize it, as you can see, in 3 slides, what the reports are saying. So if you want to have more details, feel free just to download the information, and you're going to have all the information you want there. But basically what they're talking about, what is really well perceived by anybody that would like to invest in the world, basically. And the people that have money. Promotion of affordability of housing is a plus. If people are going to come in your area and they would like me to come in your area and they know that you have more affordable housing, you bet that it's going to be a plus value for you. It's going to be a good point for you, okay? Discourage urban sprawl and protect green spaces. For about a century, we have been kind of crazy of just promoting urban sprawl. And we're saying, well, we don't want to see our neighbors. Well, there is a cost with that. And the cost in the long term, it means that some communities are not affordable anymore, and they cannot afford even provide services for people that live in that community. So, this is one thing to say. One also other point that is interesting, they were putting a lot of emphasis in the reports about the resiliency of community. A community is resilient when they can bounce back after an event, a natural disaster happened, and they can go back to where they were before that event. And if you can demonstrate that your communities can really bounce back quite easily, this is a plus value for you that is going to be seen very positively by newcomers and also by international investment. Be competitive also with livability, employment offerings, and recreational and cultural amenities. You bet that this region can really position themselves quite good in an amazing way, positively, to represent and to say, yes, this is a livable area. We have also employment offerings, and you can sell yourself at the international level like nobody else, okay? As people from this region, you're the best salesperson that you can imagine, okay? Don't wait for any governments or any organization to sell you better than yourself, okay? Now, a lot of people were mentioning to us at one point that, well, but there's no money. That is not true. What the literature is telling you, there are a lot of money, and to a point where they are almost desperate to deploy their capital in order to invest in even regions that they never considered in the past. And they want to have a return on investment, but they realize that they cannot have a return on investment on a lot of places that are their natural way of investing in the world. So they will have to look at other markets, and we can position this region as another market. What they're looking here is for money should be recouped if needed. That means they don't want to have something that is going to be tied down for too many years, basically, but they want something that they can offer a reasonable return on investment if you can demonstrate that you have also some positive aspect of it. Now, interestingly also, they were mentioning here something that I found quite important for you. They were talking about acting to raise the quality of life of the communities by offering higher densities for the built environment that incorporate mixed and age-related housing, retail investments, office space, dining, and walk-to-work offices, and respond appropriately to climate change issues. Guess what? Smart growth principles, new urbanism principles, Agenda 21 principle, whatever big organization like that that is talking about sustainability, they promote these items here. So at the moment, you're going to build with these principles in mind, you bet that you can position yourself really well that way. So, okay. There's a report that came about 3 weeks ago from the Canadian Rural Revitalization Foundation. And that report is also available on the internet. It's called The State of Rural Canada. And in the report, I'm going to summarize only with 2 points. I mean, the report is pretty big, but they talk about governments here, that means the federal, the provincial, and local governments must develop a new and robust vision and policy framework for rural Canada. That means we have to work in partnership. The silo ways of approaching how it's going to be done in communities doesn't work anymore, and we have to change our way of approaching how we're going to help communities and how we can work with communities. Okay. By the way, the partnership that we have that is presenting right now, it's an example of how it can work, okay? Now, rural communities must be active participants in understanding, planning, and investing in their own futures. And guess what? You have also mentioned something similar during the brainstorming session. You wanted to take the ownership, and you mention it over and over again. We want to have the ownership of what we're going to implement in our communities. And we think it's the right way to do it. So we're going to make sure that you're going to have the possibility of doing it. Okay? At this point in time, I'm going to move to my friend Stephen that will make the second part of this presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. As I stated before, my name is Stephen Hildebrand. I'm a student at UNB, and I'm working with the partnership on this project. I'm just going to give a quick overview about the brainstorming session itself. I think most of us were here for that day, but it was a while ago. Basically, what the partnership needed and what the SCD design approach needs is the ideas of how to bring immigration, and jobs to the region, basically. These are the two main challenges facing the area, and in order to do that, we needed ideas. And the best way to get those ideas are from the people in the region who understand the region. And in order to get those, we needed a system that was coherent and organized and structured to do that, and that was a brainstorming session. So basically, we had people come from all over the region. The region consists of most of Charlotte County, as well as Harvey and McAdam. It goes, of course, right down to Grand Manan. We had 29 visionary people come from all over the area to help design a process and come up with some ideas that would work for the area. The methodologies used. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We are not professionals at designing idea exercises, so we borrowed them, stole them from places, and we used the ones that we thought would suit the theme the best. Basically, each technique was borrowed, but we applied a question that was relevant to the area and was relevant to what we needed ideas about. So basically, as you can see, we needed to attract newcomers and jobs in the region, and we reworded that question over and over and over again to try to tease out a different way of thinking from the participants. And I remember the day. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always fun. At some points, the exercises were quite painful and the frustration was very large, but the quality of ideas and the number of ideas we got out of that session, I think, were worth it. So, I can go through some of the techniques. Some of you remember them quite vividly, I'm sure. Free writing was just to get the creative juices flowing and get some inspiration to start thinking outside of the box. And then the exaggeration exercise was to try to break down some barriers to release the thinking from being constrained to what we have in the region to what could be given impossibilities. And these types of things resulted in lots of good ideas that were built upon each other. Since we had 700 ideas, it was going to be nearly impossible for us to go through them and try to pick out the ones that were priorities, so we had the participants do it instead. And once again, these exercises weren't the easiest and they weren't the most fun, but they resulted in some incredible results, at least from my perspective. We grouped the ideas on the wall, as you can see in the pictures, that wall right there and this wall and some tables, because there were so many. And we had participants go through and separate them. And we didn't give the participants in the session categories. They had to match them up as they felt were appropriate. And we really did get some interesting idea categories out of that, categories that we would have never been able to name ahead of time to get participants to put ideas into. So the visionary people who attended this session also were instrumental in focusing the themes of this session rather than having us try to fit ideas into boxes. The participants made the boxes themselves, how they felt it was more appropriate. So of the 700 ideas, there were 13 core ideas that were framed, that were scored and ranked accordingly, and those are in order. And then of those 13 ideas, we were able to find 5 main focuses that people had within the region. The first focus, and the most important, is that all levels of government must coordinate their efforts and actions. And this came up over and over and over again in the top 13 ideas, as well as many of the rest of the ideas that weren't ranked highest. This is especially pertinent for marketing and promotion of the region, which was ranked as the #1 priority for the people of the region and for the visionary people who came. The promotion of availability of local food sources as well as affordable housing in the area was a recurring theme as well. There was many ideas that focused on both of these things, whether it was using the availability of the local food system that exists already as an asset, or in the promotion of it and the expansion of it to the need for affordable housing and to some of the affordable housing stock that is underutilized currently. All these ideas were thrown out there and gone over and ranked, and it came up as a focus for the session. The third focus was to preserve and encourage the use of all modes of transportation. This came out of ideas around ferries, the requirement for ferries to be year-round and reliable, as well as things like non-vehicle pathways and those sort of things. Public transportation was also mentioned a few times. The fourth focus was encouraging year-round activities within the region. This was centered on expanding shoulder seasons for tourist activities, all towards, and as well as including winter activities in the promotion of the region, and making these sort of activities available to people and more accessible to the communities within the area. The fifth, which was very surprising to me, was emphasizing the right for people to live and educate in the language of their choice. The people of the region who came to this session found that it was very important to promote this to the world, and they felt that they could attract a lot of newcomers and jobs to the region by promoting this Canadian right. It's right in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they felt that it was very important to focus on that when trying to position this region on the world stage. As I mentioned earlier, we had the categorization exercise, and participants of the session ended up categorizing the ideas into 7 different unnamed categories. When we looked at all these categories during the analysis, there were 6 specific sections. There were 2 categories that were similar on the wall, but other than that, the rest were very diverse from each other, or very different from each other. When you look very closely at each of the categories and compare idea beside idea beside idea, it looks like mayhem, and I think a lot of participants remember that because it felt like mayhem when it was happening. It didn't make sense, but when we stepped back from these categories and read them as a whole, there were very distinct themes that emerged from them, and I think that's very important for the results from this session. And those themes are up here, and I'll go through them. They're in no particular order. But local community relations and support, that was one of the major themes that emerged from one of the categories. That was basically what can communities do within themselves to promote jobs and newcomers to come to the region. This includes a variety of things, but very specifically word-of-mouth marketing effort. Over and over and over within this category it came up, ideas around that sort of thing. The second category would be the uniqueness of the region. There were a lot of ideas. This is mostly nouns. It came up from some of the exercises where you said, what is unique about your region that can attract people? And so a lot of those ideas ended up in this category. And this includes funny things like the Lake Utopia monster, for instance, utilizing that in marketing efforts. It might be a goofy idea, but it might be a good idea. So that's something that came up here. Other things include the housing, the style of the housing in the region. The Macadam train station. Is it Macadam? Macadam train station, right? Yeah. And other unique qualities within the area that came up. And so there are recommendations around that. Participants in the session also, in the next category, they highlighted in the accessibility and transportation area. They brought a lot of things together, and that's not just physical accessibility, but also economic accessibility for the region. And these ideas all got put together in this category, which I found very interesting. And as I started looking at this category and the ideas within it, I noticed the links between economic and physical accessibility and how those ideas weren't very different from each other. And I thought that's something that would have never come up had we given names to the categories to begin with. So some of the recommendations about your ideas are around that in that category. Government and local supports. These were ideas that were about what the municipal level governments and the local level governments can do, and the kind of organizations that exist at the local level that need to be worked with, and ideas around those organizations. This includes things like bylaws, making bylaws friendly to new business or to newcomers and jobs, and we'll go through more of these ideas later on in the session. Government policy and support this is more of things that transfer to the provincial and federal levels of as far as ideas go, things that things that would be affected by those levels of government. So this is like federal tax rates or a free trade area in the region. These kind of ideas got put into that category, and there's recommendations in that category as well. And the sixth category would be amenities, basically accommodations and aesthetics of the communities. So these are the things that the community has, the assets that a community has, or the things that the participants thought the area needs in order to attract newcomers and jobs. So this was things like promoting a welcoming atmosphere, to anything from like that to walkable pathways and that sort of thing. So these ideas ended up in this category, and there's recommendations around those ideas from that category. So we'll get into the results from the categories, and we'll start with local community relations and support. The main theme that came out of this category was that the citizens of the region are the key to attracting and retaining people and jobs. When we looked at, there's nearly 100 to 150 categories or ideas within this category. And when we looked at them all and we were able to try to understand what the participants are getting at with all these ideas, this is what came up. It was repeatedly, ideas like back channeling were mentioned, talking to people who have moved away, getting them to promote the region where they are and to bring other people back, or to bring themselves back and invest in the community here, these type of ideas. So we developed a recommendation around that, and that recommendation is that the region needs to adopt a micro-focused approach involving individual citizens, their friends, their families, their extended networks in the recruiting and supporting of newcomers in industry, and as well in supporting the marketing effort of the region. Basically, this is the overarching theme, is this partnership of everybody working together to do this, and that includes the citizens of the region itself. And this was one of the main themes that the participants of the session, the visionary people of our C10 or of the area, came up with. And I thought it was very visionary in that the participants felt that they needed to be involved in this effort to help the community itself. The next category was uniqueness. And these ideas, as I said earlier, surrounded around things that make the region unique. And so we have 4 recommendations, or maybe, I'm not sure how many, they're in the report, but the recommendations that we made rest on these themes. That is emphasizing the importance of seniors housing within the communities to attract young families. Basically, we don't want the seniors of the community moving away to find care. We need to keep them within the community in order to keep their families within the community. Because if granddad and grandma move to St. John, what's keeping that family from moving to St. John? That was basically what this recommendation is about, and it's keeping those seniors housing units and the support for that local. The second recommendation is to encourage the development of underutilized ecotourism assets. This was, like I mentioned earlier, the Lake Utopia monster, or encouraging wintertime tourism in the region. There's lots to do here, and these ideas came up over and over and over again, and especially around ecotourism. And so it's supporting the ecotourism industry as an incentive to bring newcomers and jobs to the region. It was seen as an important area to do that. The third recommendation was preserving the unique wild spaces. Wild spaces were repeatedly mentioned in the uniqueness category. What makes the area unique? The lakes, the rivers, the fall colors, the weather in the summer, the weather in the winter. It's all unique, and these things need to be utilized in the marketing effort and in attracting newcomers to come to the area and positioning the region on a world stage for investment opportunities. The fourth recommendation in this category would be supporting and encouraging local artisanal and craft food and beverage production. These ideas also, this was very personally surprising for me. I didn't expect to see these ideas coming up, but these ideas came up over and over and over again. And this is something that the people at the session thought was very important for the region in attracting investment, in attracting people to the region. The participants of the session felt that if the region promotes the local artisanal and craft industry or sector, if whatever you want to call it, then people will be more likely to move to and to invest in the area. The next category I'm going to talk about is the accessibility and transportation category. This one was by far the easiest one to name. I loved it. When we were going through all the sections, I said, that one's transportation. And then I looked at it closer and I said, oh, and it's got all this economic stuff in it, so it must be accessibility as well. And so the recommendations from this category are encouraging and supporting economic access across borders. This isn't just the international border or the provincial borders. This is borders that are invisible and not drawn on maps. This is things like economic access between your communities. This is, which is also transportation access between your communities, as well as maintaining this infrastructure so that you can have economic access to St. John and Fredericton and within the province itself as well. The second recommendation or area of recommendation is developing accessible and community integrated supported seniors housing with multiple levels of care. Like I mentioned in the last category, this was also in this category, but more on the accessibility side. Accessible housing is seen as a very important aspect of growing the community and attracting newcomers. Because once again, if you look at a community that you're moving to and you can't stay there for life, you might not want to move there. And the participants of this session saw this, and they said that they needed to support these housing developments and promote them within their communities and make them community integrated, basically meaning they didn't want these places on the outside of town. They wanted them right in the center so that as people's mobility changes, their method of transportation changes, and they can still access the community that they are a part of, that their mobility doesn't affect their long-term participation within that community. Number 3, increased walkability and bicycle infrastructure. This goes along with the last recommendation as well. Once again, your mobility choices or your forms of transportation choices shouldn't dictate how well you integrate yourself in the community. And the participants of the session recognize this as a priority area. The participants recognize that, or they want to emphasize the value of walkable and bicycle infrastructure, basically non-vehicle modes of transportation within their community as a method to attract people to their communities. Reducing regulatory barriers to regional bus service integrated with ferries and airports. The bus service came up many times during the session, and it's a current issue, which is probably why it came up in the session so many times, but that doesn't diminish its importance. The participants in the session recognize the need for local infrastructure that isn't based around car transportation, that's bus transportation between the communities. This goes with the first recommendation to support economic access across borders. If you can't get on a bus, if you don't have a car and you can't get on a bus to go to Macadam or go to Harvey or go down the track to St. John, the chances of you moving to St. John or to the area without a car are very low. So we wanted, the participants of the session saw the value in promoting a bus service and doing whatever they could to reduce those regulatory hurdles that are currently impeding that service. The fifth recommendation was around non-vehicle pathways, once again, integrated with public transportation networks. It came up quite a few times in the session that with all these non-vehicle pathways or the bicycle infrastructure or the non-vehicle transportation networks, that they have to be integrated. You have to be able to get from point A to point B. You can't get halfway, because the participants of the session recognize that half a kilometer of bicycle path when you need to go 3 kilometers isn't going to be enough to draw people to the community. It's not effective. So integrating these networks with existing networks to be effective was a priority for the people at the session.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, for that part of the presentation. Now we're going to shift to government and local supports, and I should say here governments, okay, even if it's written government, think about many levels of governments, federal, provincial, local governments. And if we look at all the information we have received under that heading, we can summarize it this way. Visionary people during the brainstorming session have mentioned that they would like to have better promotion and support for actions by all levels of governments. They would like us, plus the federal government, plus all the local communities to have better partnership and to work in partnership. Whatever is going to happen should be done in partnership. It makes a lot of sense. And if you're going to have also an organization that is going to be part of the whole process, make sure that they are part of the partnership in order that it's going to work. Now, all levels of government must support growth of population numbers significantly. And I understand, I mean, there has been a lot of frustration. People were telling us, how is it possible to increase the population of the county or RSC 10 in a significant way if we have only small numbers of refugees that can come? Yes, I mean, it is one issue that you will have to tackle, and how it's going to be solved, it's going to come from you. And you're going to be able to tackle it and to take the ownership with that and pushing in the right way where it's going to give you the benefits you're looking for. Promote actions to create and preserve jobs. There were a lot of examples that we're giving of how they can do it. For example, here they were mentioning reducing tax rates, size of governments that is going to fit what you're living in. Sometimes it has to be improved. Increase, and sometimes it has to be decrease, and you are in better position than, for example, me in Fredericton to figure out what is really appropriate for you. Promoting a more efficient government process or processes was also mentioned there. And we're going to move on with the next one, which was government's policies and supports here. All the ideas that we received there, we can summarize them in 5 points. Emphasize on existing facilities in the province. If we have a facility here that is already in existence, feel free to advertise it and to really put it at the forefront. It's to your advantage to have it that way, and people from the community realize that. That makes just a lot of sense. Provide subsidies for training and retraining to match requirements of communities and employers' needs. As you can imagine, if you have a need somewhere, the best people that know the needs are the people from the area. And it's one thing to give training to people, but making sure that the training they receive is going to fit with the requirement that your area needs. And that was a huge aspect that you were mentioning. Yes, I mean, we should put the emphasis on that. Incorporate also people's ideas and action and policies and action. And we're going to come back to that in a moment, but that comes back to one thing. Ownership. You want to take the ownership, and you are going to see how the ownership can be done in a moment. Offer healthcare services 24/7 and incentives for physician and healthcare practitioners to work in the region. People at the brainstorming session realize that yes, I mean, you have good healthcare services here, but sometimes it's missing in certain areas and you would like me to expand it. Is there ways of expanding it? Is there ways how it can be approached with physician and healthcare practitioners to work in the region? Well, that was mentioned by the people during the brainstorming session, and we can move ahead with that too as one of the points you want to push as a region. Adapt also your immigration policy to the region's needs and facilitate citizenship for people who wish to live in low population centers. Basically what you were saying here that we understood, it was, okay, if we have some areas in the region that have really low populations, is there a way of giving some incentives for immigrants to go in these areas? And is there a way also that we can work with immigration that it's going to be an incentive that is going to bring them over there? So, interesting ideas over there. The last categories, it's really 2 categories altogether, and we call them the category of amenities, okay? It corresponds to accommodations and aesthetics, and you're going to see in a moment what we're talking about, and we can summarize it in 4 points. The first one is develop an approach linked to the amenities of the region. You have unique amenities here if you compare yourself to the rest of the planet. And you have to put the emphasis on an approach that is going to focus on your amenities that you have there. It just makes sense, okay? Instead of trying to bring something else when you have something that is already in existence here. You build with what you have, okay? Develop also an approach for tourism, industrial, and commercial activities to complement each other. It was mentioned during the brainstorming session, people telling us, oh, you know, in the past, we have seen some commercial activities or some industrial activities and tourism activities that were competing with each other for the region instead of working together and being complementary to each other. Yes, you can work toward that. You can really develop it in ways that it's going to give the benefit that you're looking for. Adopt also a complementary approach for local food of high quality and places to see and visit. Interestingly here, people that are not from this region don't realize how wonderful this area is, not only for the province, but also at the world stage. You can really compete at the world stage. The way that you have, some people have developed a kind of food of high quality here, and why not to use it? And again, you build with what you have and you improve it in ways that it's going to give you even more benefit. The last point that's very interesting because this one is really because of this region. There's no other places in the world that is like that. And I guess, you won't be surprised by that one. Present the natural scenery and amenities of the area. Pure air, untarnished natural areas, unique areas and amenities at the forefront for when inviting people to live, visit, or create jobs in the area. Some of you, we had the conversation at one point and we were talking about, okay, if we wanted to attract newcomers from China, for example, or Beijing, what do you have from here that people from Beijing don't have? Fresh air, okay? Now, I know it's pretty simple. I know people are thinking, oh, come on, we're living with that. It's not really an amenity. Well, for a certain region of the planet, it is an amenity. It's something outstanding, unique for your area. And why not position yourself in order that you're going to attract these people? Be excited for your area. Be excited for your region and sell your region in ways that it's going to attract people. For those of you that are watching this presentation on Community TV and would like to be involved with that approach on attracting newcomers and attracting also investment for jobs, we would ask you if you're interested to be part of it and to part of the organizations that can help you. Please get in touch with your municipality. Let them know that you would like to be involved and they're going to involve you. There are already committees that exist and they're going to work with you in order to bring your region to a new way of attracting these newcomers and these jobs in your community. Thank you very much for watching it. I hope it was not only entertaining, but it was also informative and it's going to help you to get a more sustainable community for your region or more sustainable communities for your region. Thank you.